So to start off, Evangeline dies. I'm just kidding. Welcome back. Those of you who are here maybe just want to recap on Ballad of Never After, or you watched my recap on Once Upon a Broken Heart, because we're celebrating the release of A Curse of What is the name? A Curse for... Oh my gosh, let me restart. My Barnes & Noble special edition copy came into the mail for A Curse for True Love, and my husband has the mail key. So I literally can't get it. It's just sitting in the mailbox. So I'm really sad. So instead of reading the third book, I'm gonna make a recap for this one. This is my favorite. Probably the best book I have read in several years. At least in my opinion, it's the one I enjoyed the most, the one I loved the most. This is where stuff goes down. So we start off with a letter written by Evangeline to herself saying, "Dear Evangeline, if you ever start liking Jax or think he's a friend or get caught in those eyes, don't. He betrayed you. Don't ever trust him again." The end. So in case you don't remember the end of Once Upon a Broken Heart, she starts to trust Jax, starts to befriend him, and then she's going to find him, and then she finds out that Apollo is alive, and it was Jax who put the spell on him, and that was a terrible thing. And he lied. So he was cursed by Jax, so she's freaking mad and she's fed up. Understandably so, but of course we hate to see it. So she goes down and sees Apollo, and his body is just there. So Jax comes down and is like, "Oh, would you look at that?" And she's like, "Go away." Oh wait, no, I'm skipping stuff. So at the end of the book, we know that Evangeline is like, "Oh, I'm gonna open that secret door in the library." So she goes to that secret door and she opens anything with her blood. So she pricks her finger, opens the Valory Arch. She didn't know it was the Valory Arch, but that secret door in the library in Wolf Hall, and she started to freak out, but then she realized, oh, I don't have all the stones. So it's not complete. I didn't really open it, but I kind of did the first step, and that is terrifying. Jax is like, "I will lift this curse off of Apollo, but you have to open the Valory Arch. You gotta do it. I'm making you do it." And she's like, "No, absolutely not. You betrayed me and I hate you." She actually does kind of hate him. Why am I not remembering? I literally just finished this book, but I'm like, what happens after? Am I the worst booktuber in the world? Maybe. Yeah, her and Jax have this interaction when he comes up to her as she's before she opens the Valory Arch, and he's like, "Don't do that, little fox." And she's like, "I can do whatever I want." And he's like, "Okay." Of course he's like, "Go ahead and do it," in his head, because that's the Valory Arch, and he knows that, but she doesn't. Evangeline is like, "No way, I'm not gonna open the arch for you." And he's like, "Okay, whatever you want," and goes away laughing, chuckling to himself, because that's how Jax is. She goes down to see Apollo, and Jax is there too. Apollo has awoken from his frozen state because Jax wills it. And then he looks at Evangeline and he's like, "Oh my gosh, hey." And then his eyes turn red and he starts grabbing her wrist, and she's like, "Ow, he's gonna crush my wrist." All of a sudden she starts bleeding because Jax, to ward off Apollo from hurting Evangeline, had stabbed him in the arm. Evangeline is bleeding from her arm, and they realize that there's another curse on him. Oh my gosh, Apollo just being cursed a million times. So he'd been frozen, and now he's been awoken, but they realize they have a mirror curse, giving vampire diaries, right? Any wounds or anything that's inflicted on Apollo is inflicted on Evangeline, and vice versa. She accuses Jax, but Jax is like, "No, I didn't do this curse. Just trust me, I didn't do this. I don't know who did this and why." Evangeline then goes to Lala because she's like, "Lala, help. How do I figure this out?" And Lala's like, "I have no idea, but you should open the Valory Arch." She just blurts it out, and Evangeline's like, "Oh, what?" And Lala's like, "Maybe you should work with Jax. Maybe this would actually help. Maybe you should do it. Maybe you should fix Apollo, and this is the only way." And Evangeline's like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear." And then Lala's also like, "Also, I'm engaged." And of course Evangeline's like, "Oh, that's great to hear." And Jax is like, "That won't last long." Even though Evangeline knows that she's a fae and she's an unwed bride and can never actually get married, she's still excited for her friend because of course she still yearns to get married and find love. So it really confuses Evangeline because Lala had been against Jax, not working with Jax, but now she's like, "Okay, Evangeline, go and work with Jax." So she goes back to see Apollo, but he's gone. His little soldier guy and the girl there is like, "Apollo's gone. We don't know where he went." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you had one job." Not really. She's actually really nice. So her and Jax, for some reason they're outside. Don't remember why. Her and Jax are outside. He of course wants her to open the Valory Arch. She's like, "No way." And then they hear something rustle in the bushes and they look. There is Apollo on a horse, and he has a bow and arrow in his hand. She goes up to him and she says, "Apollo, you're awake. I'm so glad to see you." And he's like, "Wow, you look great." She's like, "Okay, thank you." And then all of a sudden he's like, "But you gotta get out of here. Go away." I don't want to hurt you. And she's all confused, but turns out he like raises his arrow and he starts to aim for Evangeline and his eyes turn red again. And Jax is like, we gotta get out of here. He grabs her, takes her, and then she gets shot. Oh my gosh, she gets hurt so much in this book. She gets shot in the calf or the shoulder. Anyway, she gets severely injured. Because of this, Jax is like, oh gosh, you are gonna die. And of course, Apollo also gets injured because of this. And Jax is like a little worried. He's like, this doesn't look good, little fox. Let's take you to Chaos. We got to basically give you vampire blood and you can heal. And because Evangeline isn't sure of any other way to help lift this curse, the Archer's curse, Jax is like, he will hunt you until he gets you and he will do it till he dies. The only way to lift this is probably to open the Valory Arch. So she's like, okay, I don't see this going any other way, fine. So basically they have to look for missing magical stones to fit into the Valory Arch. So Jax takes Evangeline to Chaos, the vampire, fate guy that we love, hate. You know, I never imagined him being hot until I read this again. And I was like, okay, he fine. Evangeline at this point can't deny that Jax is freaking irresistible. And she of course knows that, but she hates him because he's being selfish, he's being the worst. So why like him? Evangeline, oh wait, this part is so crazy. Evangeline basically is given vampire blood and she is locked up in this room. She's in a room and they put a cage over her so she can't escape, but of course she can open everything with her blood. So she like opens it and she's like, I need blood, I need someone's blood. And Jax is in the room, so she wants to get to him and she's like, please let me just have one taste. Although she knows she doesn't want to be a vampire, her whole mind is overtaken by the urge. Chaos like pins her down on the bed. Okay. And he's like, no, you can't. You can't. And she's like trying to fight it. And Jax comes in and he is like, what are you doing? And that's the best part. He says like, what are you doing, right? Because he's just seeing Chaos pinning her down to a bed. And he's like, I need to help her. And he's like, fine. And he leaves. And then of course Evangeline doesn't turn. She feels a lot better. Jax leaves her a note that is like, hi, I'm gone on adventures. Like, got to go. She is left alone in Chaos's castle for 10 days as Jax is like out and about. She doesn't know what he's up to. She's like, okay, I'll just peek around in the library, I guess. So she starts researching and reading about the Valors and as much as she can. But as you know, everything in the north, in the Maleficent north, like the endings start to change. So Chaos is like, this is a library that hasn't been touched that much. So these stories haven't been altered very often. But as she's reading them, like a lot of the stories about the Marywood Three or the Valors, like they start to change like eye color or names just as she's reading it right before her eyes. And a lot of things are just blank. She finds a picture of the Marywood Three and one of them very much looks like Jax. She is starting to think that maybe Jax is one of the Marywood Three. There's Castor Valor, Lyric Marywood, and the Archer. Evangeline discovers that Chaos has one of the stones and it is the Luck Stone. And this is where we find out that I guess there had been other keys and Jax is like, what, you thought you would be the only key? No, I guess like hundreds of years prior there had been another rose gold haired girl and she was destined to open the Valory Arch, and so she found the Luck Stone, to which is now in possession with Chaos. She finds it and she like wants it, like the stones have a pull to her, and so she's like all possessive of it, and as soon as it's given back and shut away in a tin box, she's like, oh, that was weird, what the heck? So Evangeline leaves the library only to find him playing chess with this random vampire girl, and he looks tired, he has bags underneath his eyes, and he looks a little laid back. And so Evangeline is like, okay Jax, where the heck have you been? And he's like, relax little fox, I'm fine, I just had some errands to run. And she's like, no, where were you? And he's like, you don't need to know. Basically compulses the girl to leave and he's like, you can leave now. And Evangeline is like obviously jealous, but she doesn't know why. And he's like, are you jealous, little fox? And she's like, no, I just didn't want you to leave me. So Evangeline finds a little paper that was made by the previous rose colored hair girl. So they found the Luck Stone. They have the Truth Stone, the Mirth Stone, and the Youth Stone. And so they were invited to Lala's engagement party. So they head up to the Slaughterwood house because she's engaged to a Slaughterwood. They head over there. Basically, Evangeline confronts Jackson. Is like, what do you know about the Valors? Are you the Marywood Three? And he's like, no. And she's like, were you friends with Archer? And he's like, not exactly. No, I wouldn't say we were friends. So he kind of opens up about like their background. Her and him are like, okay, the stones like to be drawn together. So likely they'll all be at this house tonight. And she's like, I gotta find them. So Evangeline starts getting ready for like different dinner parties and everything, and Lala seems really happy. Anyway, she gets really jealous. There's this girl named Petra who's like very beautiful, blonde, and she's kind of eyeing Jax, and Evangeline immediately is like, I don't like this girl. Jax kind of has this way with women, and he even tries to kiss someone, and she goes and finds him, and he is about to kiss a girl, and she is like, Jax, stop! You're not killing anyone tonight. And he's like, fine, little fox. And like, he makes the girl like run away, and he's like, you take the fun out of everything. And she's like, Jax, what are you doing? And he like pushes her against the wall and like puts his hand up the slit of her dress, and he's like, what do you think we're doing? What about us? And she's like, and then she pushes him away. He's like, what about us? I'm married. She had snuck out of her room to go and find the Mirth Stone. And she actually like made 2 connections. She went to this tunnel and she finds a grave for one of the Slaughterwoods, and it had like mirth on her little stone. And so she opened the huge, oh my gosh, what's that word? I can't even think right now. But she opens it and she finds this Mirth Stone. And then all of a sudden Luke is there, and he's like, hi Evangeline, will you be my date tomorrow? And she's like, no, but I'll save you a dance. Anyways, they didn't dance the dance because Jax basically was like, get away, Luke. She sees like Petra going around, and she feels a little bit threatened. So she goes to find Jax, but he's not in his bedroom. So she actually ends up falling asleep on his bed, clutching his shirt because it smells like apples. And he finds her when she wakes up, and he's like, what are you doing? And it's actually really cute. Anyways, flash forward, they're about to have another dinner party, and they're supposed to dress up as like famous couples. And so she's the fox, and there's different people dressed up as like mermaids, mermen, archers, little things. And she goes to find Jax, only to find Jax in his room talking to Lala. She overhears a conversation that they have where Jax is like, oh, she means nothing to me. I just need her to find the stones, and then I'm done with her. She's just peeking in the back. And she's really hurt by this, so she goes and gets drunk at this dinner party. As she's drunk, Petra's like, come with me, I can help you, like, let's go talk. Yeah, Jax is trouble, and she's like, yeah, I know. She realizes that this girl, Petra, is actually the prior key with the rose gold hair. Her wig falls off as she's trying to hurt Evangeline, and she makes the 2 connections because she feels a pulse to the youth stone. She's like, oh my gosh, she has the youth stone. As Petra's trying to kill her, Evangeline actually stabs her. She's freaking out because she didn't want to kill anyone. So Jax comes, he is immediately there, and he just hugs her, and she's a mess, and she's just crying. And he's like, it's okay, you were in self-defense. The youth stone got to her, she wasn't a good person. Like, I'll clean this up, I'll do everything. And she's like, okay. So she goes to sleep. After she kills Petra, she goes and like starts packing because he's like, we're getting out of here, more people are gonna die. She's packing, and all of a sudden she starts to feel a sharp pain in her back. So something has happened to Apollo, and she's just gushing blood everywhere. Jax is like, Luke, you're here, go back to Chaos and find Apollo and make Chaos heal him. And Luke is like, wait, I'm not supposed to be here, I'm not supposed to be around Evangeline. And Jax is like, I don't care, you do it. So Luke goes and does it. Jax like carries Evangeline into the carriage. They start to ride through Marywood Forest, and all of a sudden she starts to feel warm inside. I think she gets cut again in her thigh or something. She gets injured again, so she's just screaming and throbbing in pain. Anyways, he takes her somewhere, which is called the Hollow. He bandages her and like takes care of her, and it's actually a really sweet moment. They spend a long time in the Hollow. She comes to find out that the Hollow is somewhere where magic can't work. So Jax is hoping that the Archer's curse won't affect her, and also time moves differently there so she can heal faster. It's like very magical, very bright and cozy and warm, and like food just appears in front of you on like a food clock, and every hour there's like different food that appears. She befriends a dragon that just like wanders in, a little baby dragon. She's just feeling like kind of closer to Jax, and he's starting to like relax, and they're starting to talk, and she finds out some stuff. Like, she sees Jax's like heights on the wall, and she's like, Jax, this was your home. And he's like, oh yeah. She finds a journal from one of the Valors, and that Jax had like his initials written up on the wall with her, but he's like, no, I never loved her. So she knows that at this point that Jax had some type of relationship within the Valors, like he was involved somehow. Jax disappears, didn't say anything, and she's worried about him, but then he appears, he's bleeding out of his stomach, and she's like, oh my gosh, Jax. And it's the cutest part. He leans against the door frame, and he's like, hey little fox, and she helps him, nurses him back to life, but it was fine because he's kind of healing on his own anyways. But then he gets all giddy, and he's like, stay with me, tell me I'm yours just for tonight, Evangeline, we'll just be each other's for tonight. And she means to say, for tonight I'm yours, but she just says, I'm yours. She is having these dreams, these recurring dreams. This handsome stranger who looks kind of similar to Jax appears to her and like kind of tells her things about the Valors. He tells her something, open the arch, like you need to open the arch. And then Lala appears in the dream, and she's like, hey Evangeline, I don't think Jax is himself. I think you're being influenced by the Mirthstone. And she's like, the Mirthstone? What do you mean? I just found the Mirthstone. But what she actually had found was the Truth Stone. And that makes sense to why Petra Astra couldn't lie to her when she was holding the stone, and why Jax also had a hard time lying to her too when he was talking about the Valors in the carriage ride. She wakes up, of course is loving being close to Jax, but she knows it can't last. So she goes and finds the mirth stone in the clock. Jax wakes up and is like, hey, puts her on his lap, and he's like trying to be all cutesy, and he's like, hey, what's up? And literally not like that, but he Jax does not say what's up, just so you know. She's like, Jax, this isn't real. And he's like, what do you mean this isn't? I know what I'm feeling. And she's like, none of what you're feeling is right. And he's like, how do you know what I'm feeling? She takes the mirth stone out of the clock, and everything starts to get dusty, dreary, dark in the hollow. And Jax is upset, and she's like, okay, it worked. We're back to normal. But he was really just upset. They have a conversation back at Wolf Hall because they're ready to open the Valory Arch. Basically, Evangeline is like, Jax, I don't think we can deny what we're feeling. Jax is like, no, Evangeline, this can never work. I found the love of my life, and you were not her. At this point, she had found out that Jax didn't actually want to open the Valory Arch. He wanted to use the stones to go back in time. I want to go back in time. They can be used once to go back in time at any moment. And he wants a second chance with Donatella. And she's like, but Donatella didn't love you. And he's like, well, that's what the hope is. I go back and fix it. Like, I have one shot at my true love, and I don't want to miss it. And she's like, no, but we can make this work. Like, we can. And he's like, no. Because what does the archer always do to the fox? He kills her. Because I was the archer. I would know. Everyone doesn't know the end of that whole ballad, but I know. The ballad ends in the fox dying. Even though I was able to stay away from her and eventually break the archer curse, when she did find me and we were able to finally be in love, I kissed her and it killed her. And that's how the story goes. Anyway, she's upset and Jax just leaves and she's like, so this is how it's gonna end? And he's like, pretty much like, yeah. Sushi's being crazy. Chaos is like, ready to go? Anyways, they go, and she opens the Valory Arch. Jax is not there, and she's like, Jax isn't coming, and Chaos is like, I guess not. So she didn't get to say goodbye to Jax. She finds people laying down on the floor. She assumes that it's the Valors, all laying down the floor holding hands. They awake. She finds out that this woman who rises out of the group is Chaos's mother, because she's like, oh, my son. He's actually Castor, one of the Valors. And she removes his helm because I guess the monster that they created that was kept in the Valory Arch was vampires, because he almost died and that was the curse / powers that she gave him. His helm is removed and he is like so happy, and he, you know, she obviously knows that it's Castor because of those books she's read. And then all of a sudden his eyes turn hungry and he feeds on Evangeline and starts like full on drinking her blood out of her body. Jax comes in and is like, Chaos, no! And he goes, wait, does he say Castor at the end? I just thought of this. Jax shouts, Castor, no. I just realized he said Castor, so he knew that Chaos was Castor. The connections, everything's coming together. Basically, he holds Evangeline and Evangeline just feels his tears fall onto her face, but she can't feel anything else. And she tries to tell him that she's not dead, that she's still there, but then she just feels nothing. The end. Evangeline literally dies, and then we speed forward and Jax is crying out over her dead body, and it's the sweetest scene. It's just like the fate screams filled the Maleficent North. He is like, fix this. So the queen, who is Castor's mother, Jax is like, you fix this, and she's like, I can't. And he's like, you have to. Your son did this. You have to pay for it. And she's like, I can't. That's the whole reason we're in this mess, because I tried to save Castor and that didn't work out. I'm not saving her. And Jax is like, then I'm using the stones to go back and save her. I'll do it myself. And she's like, don't do that, Jax. Time travel does something. It has to take something of equal value. And he's like, there is nothing of equal value to me. Most powerful moment. Story goes a little bit different. She is like back to the morning, and it just like is copy and pasted, like the same thing. Like she's looking at the clock at the wall and she's like, okay, we're gonna open the Valory Arch. Chaos comes to get her, but instead Jax is like, actually, I've decided to come. Anyway, she opens the arch the same exact way. They put the stones in and her blood. Jax is like, okay, Evangeline, I got what I wanted. Leave, go. And she's like, all of a sudden hurt. Like, okay, what? And he's like, just do what you're told and go. And she is very hurt. She's offended and doesn't know what's happening, and he's like, she can see that he's like stressed and has some fear in his eyes. He looks at her lips and just has like yearning written all over his face. He wants her, but she can't read him, and ultimately he's like, I'm done with you. Evangeline leaves and she's just in tears, and she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? She's like, I know how to break the curse. Love. I have fallen in love with Jax. I'm gonna go tell him I love him and we can make this work and we can break the curse. She's about to find him, and then she's stopped by Apollo. And he's all like, hello, love. And oh my gosh, I forgot to mention Tiberius. Anyways, Tiberius is nowhere to be seen. He escaped his little jail, just like side note. Anyways, Apollo finds her and is like trying to sweet talk her. All of a sudden he's talking about Jax, and then he like pushes her up against a wall. She's like, get off of me, stop. And then he is using his fingers to take away her memories. She can't remember Jax. She can't remember anything about Apollo. Everything is taken away. All that she remembers is that her parents died and she's in this strange building. And then Apollo comes up and is like, hello. And she's like, who are you? I don't know who you are. And he smiles, which she finds weird. And he's like, I'm your husband. And that's how it ends. The best. Anyways, I gotta go, but I hope you enjoyed this kind of unhinged recap. Bye!